Hello football lovers och välkomna till avsnitt 11 av föräldratränarpodden där jag, Fredrik.bankler, idag har med mig en engelsk gäst. Stephen Harrison, tränare i Middlesbroughs akademi, deras under 18s. Han har tidigare varit även i Newcastle och tränat killar i 12, 13, 14 års åldern där. Intressant att höra likheter och skillnader mellan England och Sverige. Steven har också bistått med fantastiska pdf-er som är lite next level måste jag säga på hur de lägger upp sina träningar i Middlesbrough. Så gå in på föräldratränarpodden.substack.com. Prenumerera gärna där så får du ett utskick när det händer något. Det har jag lagt upp detta. Så kan ni se hur de lägger upp en training session och vad de skickar ut till teamet och spelarna innan och så. Steven kör ju en hel del med förkortningar. Det kan vara SNC och det kan vara MDT och det kan vara CPD när vi pratar där. CPD, det står för Continuous Professional Development och det för oss in på vår sponsor Kunskapsgruppen där jag jobbar. Vi gör precis detta, vi gör utbildningar för arbetslivet. Så ska du gå på kurs i någonting, ledarskap eller Excel eller ekonomi eller projektledning, gå in och kolla på kunskapsgruppen.se. Använd koden podd. Du stavar det hur du vill, så blir det 20% rabatt. Och tycker jag du kan gå till chefen och säga, nu fick jag 20% rabatt här. Kan vi inte fixa så att du på något sätt donerar dem till vår lagkassa? I så fall skulle jag säga att vi har den största win-winnen sen Due mot Danmark där 2004. Nu ska vi rulla igång den här intervjun med Stephen Harrison som givetvis föregår på engelska då. Och min engelska låter ju som en blandning mellan Borat och Ingvar Carlsson ungefär, så ni får hålla till godo med det. Jag kan också säga att jag förstår Olof Lund och kompani att de hade panik när de skulle ställa kritiska frågor till Jon Dahl Tomasson på engelska. Så med det sagt, nu kör vi igång det här avsnittet med Stephen Harrison från Middlesbrough. Welcome to föräldratränarpodden. Stephen Harrison, coach in Middlesbrough FC for the U18 team. That's right?
Yep, that's right. Yeah, U18.
Yes, very welcome. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Excited to chat about football, all things coaching.
Yeah, this is nice. You're our first international guest here. So
Wow.
you coach in Middlesbrough. Where are you sitting right now?
I'm sitting at home right now in my house. I've got a family of 5. I'm married and I've got 3 boys. So I've got a lovely family, all adore sport. So favourite place to be.
Yeah, and where is home?
Home is in a place called Bladen, which is just outside of Newcastle. It's approximately about 8 miles outside Newcastle. We're all big Newcastle United fans. So in terms of location, it's absolutely ideal. In the northeast, a lovely place to live, full of great people.
Great. And you told me earlier before we started that your 3 boys, you can tell the listeners as well, they are into football.
Yeah, all 3 of them are obsessed with football and golf. My little one's 7. He's just started his football journey with the grassroots team. He's absolutely obsessed. You know, he loves FIFA, loves football, loves sport. He loves the chaos. My middle son is 15. He's studying for his exams this summer. But again, he's somebody who's grew up with football. He had a tough experience when he was a bit younger at 14 when he got released from Newcastle United Academy. But he's bounced back now and he's playing with his mates, which is great. He's happy again. And then my oldest son is currently at Chelsea. He went to Chelsea 2 years ago, where he signed there from Newcastle United. So he's in the professional game, like working relentlessly hard to try and make a career. So super proud of him as well. So I've been really fortunate and blessed to have like 3 lads who love what I love. So their childhood has been great for me as well, being able to play every sport with them, you know, most days. But again, it's nice that I've seen my oldest one progress, but it's also lovely to see my little one just become obsessed with it and just love football.
Exactly. We're going to talk about that. And your own football background? Have you played yourself or how did you start coaching?
Yeah, like before coaching, my football background, I grew up in a little town called Hexham, which is just outside of Newcastle, in a place called Northumberland, which is situated between Newcastle and Carlisle in the northeast. And when I grew up, I become obsessed with all sport. You know, Hexham, it's a small town and everyone just knows everyone. And I remember like being a young kid, just falling in love with football. You know, it was fun, it was chaos, it was emotional. But, you know, I was very lucky that all my friends also love football. So I started off just playing for a grassroots team. And then I found myself getting in the district team. On the back of the district team, I went to the county team. And then when I was under 13, I got invited to Sunderland Academy. So I went in there when I was under 13 and got signed as an under 14. And I went on to become a scholar and a young professional, which was great at Sunderland. When that finished, I had a couple of, football's football. I nearly got a move to a couple of clubs which fell through. Then I fell into the part-time game, semi-professional. And I went on to play for teams like Gateshead, Spennymoor, Blythe Spartans, predominantly in what we call the Evo stick over here, the Northern Conference. So a good standard, you got paid, but it was part-time. But again, I love my time playing.
Isn't that Gateshead, Paul Gascoigne's mother club?
Paul Gascoigne, Paul Gascoigne grew up in Gateshead. So yeah, he's always had an affiliation with the club. So Gaz is an absolute legend, Newcastle United legend. But yeah, his childhood was spent in Gateshead. That's where he grew up.
And when was you in the Sunderland there? Which year?
So basically when I was full-time at Sunday, it was like 1996 till 2001, 2002 season. So Peter Reid was the manager at the time. The club was booming. They were getting packed out stadiums. Kevin Phillips, Niall Quinn as a partnership up front. It was a brilliant time to be at the club. When I was there, we got promotion from what was the Championship to the Premiership. So the memories were fantastic. I think that the biggest challenge then as a player was they were attracting international footballers, which made it hard to get through to the first team. But, when I look back, all my memories of being at the football club were, I've got nothing but good memories. You're getting coached by the best, you're surrounded by the best. And it was a great time in my life, which I look back with, just with good memories.
Yeah. But you had one step.
Yeah. It was as a kid, I was obsessed with football, so I would go anywhere and play for any team. But you can imagine like a Geordie going to school playing for Sunderland. All my mates used to grill us quite often. And Newcastle were always more successful than Sunderland at the time, and they're a bigger club. But yeah, that was tough. But at the same time, because the love of the game, I would have signed for any club. So yeah,
great. Okay. This podcast is going to be about mostly youth football and how you do it and how you do it in general in England. So my first question is, your boy now, 7 years old, how does he start playing football?
Yeah, what tends to happen now in the UK was the league starts when they get to under 7. So the league starts, so they have different leagues. But before that, what you find is a lot of independent coaching companies will have like development groups. So you can get your son into football from the age of 3 or 4 now. And it's paid. So you'll pay a coach to coach your son for an hour. And then teams start forming when you become under 7. So he's in his first year now of playing in a league. And, I think quite often in the area, you'll have teams which are really competitive. You'll have other coaches who are all about inclusion. And I think it's up to you as a parent to decide, like, where do you want your son to go? I mean, for us as a family, we decided we just wanted Sam to have it as a hobby, something he loves. He wants to go every week. So we've put him in a team with his friends, which he absolutely loves. And the way the leagues do it, at Christmas time, they'll review, like, the scores in each league, and they'll try and match everybody so they're up against players of their own standard. And that way the enjoyment stays and kids get minutes on the field. I do know that like some grassroots are super competitive. Like all they think about is winning. Winning's the holy grail. And when I look at Sam and I look at what my boys have been through, I didn't want that for Sam. I just want Sam to go and just see it as being around his friends, exploring, a little bit chaos, competition. But ultimately, I just want him to love football. I don't want him to become obsessed with winning and losing at such a young age. So it depends what you're after as a parent. You can go down the route of let's go to the best team and win every game, or you can go down and play with your friends and see it as a social thing with your friends and playing football.
And in Sam's team there, your youngest 7-year-old, is there like voluntarily the parent coaching? Are they like, what do you say, not paid?
So the coaches don't get paid. So for us to put Sam in, we pay a sub or a payment to the club. So we pay a fee of £20 a month. And that's for like your strips, your training kit. But the coaches do not get paid. And we're really fortunate that the coaches that Sam's with are brilliant and they're all volunteers. And I coach myself, but I don't get involved because I love to watch from the side. And I think the level of commitment that these coaches do on a voluntary basis is phenomenal. And again, you know, when you speak to the coaches, the amount of hours they put in terms of planning, preparations for the sessions, you know, like I think it's really important that you do find a coach which, you know, have like the values and obviously I don't think you have to be a skillful coach, but I just think you need to know you've got a coach that cares about the child and want to help the child get better and enjoy it.
And how many times per week do Sam train?
Sam trains once a week and have one game on a weekend. So in the winter months, we go indoors on a hard surface. So he's playing football. Actually, he finished at 7 tonight. So he does 6 till 7 on a Thursday, and then you'll play a game on the Sunday.
Does he have any other sport, or does he play with his friend like unorganized?
Yeah. So he does play unorganized sports. He loves golf. So he plays golf up at the local golf course. We try to get in all after school activities as well. So if the school are putting like karate on for 6 weeks, cricket, we always get him signed up to that as well. I think some grassroots teams will coach like 2 times a week plus a weekend game. I think it all depends on which club you're at. But for the club there, the team that Sam's at, he trains once a week and plays on a Sunday. And what we have done is another team approached him. So he does train with that team 1 day a week, but also play for them on a Saturday. But I think what we found as a family is that's a little bit too much, 2 games on a weekend, because Saturday and Sunday, it's a huge commitment. And, you know, as a family, we really believe that, you know, multi-sport is important. We want to play golf on one of those days. So there's a good chance when the summer comes, you'll drop one team to pursue another sport.
The kids play spontaneously. We talked a bit about that, but does that happen? How is your view on that?
I think it's pretty sad now. I don't think kids do play spontaneous as much anymore. I think what we're trying to do now is we're trying to replicate street football within sessions, and it's just not as authentic. Doesn't feel the same. You know, for example, I'll drive and I'll see like grass areas, parks, football pitches, and they're vacant. There's no one on them. It's like when I was a child, for example, I used to get on my bike. I used to drive to a football pitch because in Hexham where I lived, there's a middle school called St. Joseph's, and at times we had 25 players, all different ages, all different sizes, and we were there all day. And it would get to the point where certain players would leave for dinner or they had something on, so it would dwindle down. So sometimes it'll dwindle down to like a 2v2 or a 3v2. And then all of a sudden, when they'd finished the food, they'd be walking back down the hill. And it was a big celebration, everyone cheering. And every time someone come over the hill, you were picking them for your team before the opposition scene. And you were back up to 20v20. And like, those were special times, like really special times. And I just feel that, unfortunately, now we live in a world of structure where everybody wants to structure, they want to coach. When I was a kid, it was all play, very little coaching. And even now, you know, just talking about, you know, we were blessed that when I was like young, I watched the Premier League when you had like Arsenal, Man United, like, so you had the likes of Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Ashley Cole, Robert Perez. In Man United, you had Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, David Beckham, real craftsmen. They were like, the art of football was there and it was special. You'd see them do a skill and you want to replicate it on the street with your mates. You know, it might have been like the Thierry Henry volley when he wins Man United top corner. It could have been like the scissor kick. But unfortunately now, football's become very data-driven. And I think people tell me football's getting better. I think it's getting quicker. But in terms of getting better, I'm not convinced because everything's data-driven. Like, we look at how fast players can run, how fast they can turn, how high they can jump. And I just feel because players aren't playing on the street anymore and just in the flow state, loving the game, learning it, we're losing like craftsmen and that football element of the game, which it's pretty sad because I look back at my child and I loved it. As now I don't see enough players or kids outside just playing.
What do you think? How do you think the game is going to develop? What are we going to see in 15 years? Is it going to be more of this data-driven athletes, or is there going to come a new wave of craftsmen?
Yeah, I do think that it will change again, and I think I watch the game now and I see so many quick, athletic footballers. But if you look at the top leagues in the world, one thing that I think they've all got in common is they're all really good technicians. The best players, your Bernardo Silvas, your Phil Fordens, your Ezes, these type of talents are technically unbelievable. And I do think over the next 10 years, what will it look like? I still think we'll have really good athletes in football, but I do think we'll find more craftsmen. I do think the smaller format and the younger ages, so the 3v3 stuff, I think that's critical. That's really important. And I do think I love the idea of kids playing and parents just facilitating and no referee, no goalkeepers. I love that. I think it's really important that we have a responsibility as parents to stand back and just observe and watch and enjoy what we see and not get too engrossed and, start trying to referee from the side. And again, I just hope that, if we have got facilities on doorsteps, like we've got hubs in the UK, but you have to pay money to go on a pitch, it'd be great at some time where the kids can just get on free between a certain time. So kids from all different backgrounds, there might be families who struggle for money, their kids can go down and just go and play football and learn amongst the peers and just, explore and try different skills and just become brilliant and fall in love with the game that we fell in love with when we were kids.
These hubs, what is this? Is this more like cage football things?
Yeah, the hub is like a cage football. So you have like 5v5 pitches, 7v7 pitches, and also 11v11 pitches. And so my son, for example, used to go and pay a £5 and he could go on for a £5, which £5, it's not cheap. It'd be great if they just said, for example, on a Saturday morning, all children are free. And it'd be great for the kids to socialise and just play football and just try different skills. And again, just pick teams, have that ability to pick a team again, put 2 jumpers down and just play. Because I do think, I go back to when I was a kid, I think I said it before, is all I did was play. I wasn't coached. I just played, and I loved it. I just loved playing, but I think we've got to be really careful we don't have too much structure for these children. I think they need the ability to just go and play.
And if you go back to Hexham, was that your...
Yeah.
On that field there, what's happening there now? Is the field still there?
The field's still there. Yeah, the field's still there, but unfortunately there's just no kids. And for when I lived there, it was like a new estate which had been built. And it was all the kids on the estate, but then you also got an estate above where I lived. And all the players all the kids from there used to come down as well. And what used to happen, it was our estate against their estate. And then, so it become really competitive. So then when they were losing numbers, we started scoring more goals. So then all of a sudden, when their mates were coming back, it was just brilliant. But then all of a sudden, when there wasn't enough numbers, you then merge the 2 teams. So the estates become friends for a day. And then all of a sudden when the numbers become even again, you then went back in your estates and, football brought us together. Essentially, football brought us together and made us all friends, And it was just a great time. And I always look back, and I even speak to my brother now, and we talk about it all the time, just how good were those days. You had 50 bikes on the hill. You had a 25v25 game going on, no rules, bad tackles, horrendous decisions. Every goal was contested, but it was just class. You were there for hours on end. And you were devastated when you had to go home and get your tea. Because if you were late for tea, your mum would go ballistic. So, you felt you were letting your mates down when you left. But yeah, just great times.
Yeah. Brilliant memories. These hubs, again, curious, they are commercial then? It's not who owns them?
Yeah, just commercial, so privately owned. So sometimes it could be the council who help run them. It could be council hubs. So it is a council, so it's a local council. We have
the council is that's taxpayers' money, isn't it?
Yeah, taxpayers' money, yeah. So the local council run, yeah. And it would just be lovely if they were free, which it's dreamland, isn't it? But imagine if you're a kid and you're turning up and you see another 40 or 50 kids turn up as well, and you don't know them, then when you're playing, you all of a sudden, he's a really good player, he's a class player, she's a really good player, how can I get on his team? And imagine if you do that each week, and then you're learning new friends and you're getting in with the best players, and I just think that would be awesome, and it'd be really cool for the kids. But will that happen? Probably not, because we live in a world where, but I think, honestly, I do think we were blessed to grow up in the era where we did grow up because, you know, like yourself, you know, like grew up just loving football, just loving sport. And again, I know like when I worked in the foundation phase with the young kids, we used to always have like a street football night where we used to like play like FA Cup singles, FA Cup doubles, and then you just play street ball with like no rules. And the kids loved it. But again, it was like in a safe environment where there was parents watching. It's like the beauty for us when we were kids, when we played, there was no parents watching. And when your parents aren't watching, you're sometimes a bit crafty and you do things you necessarily wouldn't do if your parents are watching. And again, that's something which is missing now when in football.
Yeah, brilliant. Maybe we are over-structuring a bit with too much. But otherwise, it feels like we don't get the players to play at all. If we don't have structured trainings like 3 times a week, they won't meet up and play spontaneously. So
yeah, that's a good point. But when you talk structure as well, I think again working in an academy, I've always said this is the child will get in the dad's car, the mum's car, and they'll sit in a seat. So they've been at school all day, so they've sat down in the classroom all day. They'll get in the car, they'll sit down in the car, get the academy. And then sometimes we put them in a classroom to do analysis, which is important in some ways. Or they might do a nutrition workshop. I just think we have to, as soon as they get out of the car, they should be sprinting from the car to the pitch and just playing. But we unfortunately now we get them out the car into a classroom. We show them some video footage for 20, 25 minutes and then we go and play football. I can't tell you, when I worked at Newcastle, and I did like the under-9s, we didn't do any classroom-based work. And I always remember when they come through the academy gates, we used to sprint through the gates, down a bit of grass, used to chuck the water bottle next to the bag and used to sprint on the pitch, ready to play football. And I always promised myself, is like, that is what I want to see every session, you know, because that is what it's all about, you know, like it's great having structure, great putting the classroom, great showing some pictures, but them kids are there to play football. You know, take yourself to being a child again. Imagine that was you running down that pitch to play football. That is what it's all about. We need to give them that as much as possible.
In Sweden, we have different stages when we play youth football. We have start up with 3 versus 3, and then 5 versus 5, then 7 versus 7, 9 versus 9, 11 versus 11. Is that the same in the UK?
So in the UK, we start 5v5. However, there's a new rule coming in from 2027. We're going to go to 3v3, and then you're going to progress to 5v5, then 7v7, 9v9. And the 11v11 format starts from under 14. Because when I was a child, I went straight to 11v11. So I think when I was like 9, I was playing on an 11v11 pitch. I was the youngest player. There was one football. There's these huge goals, and I was just running on the pitch. I never got a touch. So I do love the new formats of 3v3, because even now when I coach under 18s, we will work on, you know, your 2v2s, your 3v3s, your 4v4s. It's something which you'll do throughout your career when you play football, because the different returns you get from 3v3, I think, is really important for the development of young children at that age.
So, earlier on, you've been to Newcastle. Now you're in Middlesbrough under 18, but you also have experience from Newcastle, where you trained under 13, under 14s.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
How do these, like a training week for those teams look like when they started to get up in there?
Yeah. So when I did under 13s, 14s at Newcastle, we used to train 3 times a week. And then we'd have a Saturday morning session, which was your 4th session, but that was your match day -1, and we used to play a game on a Sunday. So within that program, you always had to manage your week. So your tactical periodization would look like you'd have a large area session day, so the place could really open up. You'd have like a small area day, which we class as like a duels. So you'd have a duels night. You'd have a mixed area session. So again, you'd have a combination of the both, because you've got to hit them physical returns. And then on a Saturday would be your match day -1. So whoever the opposition was, you'd look at the opposition very loosely and look at ways that you could really exploit the opposition. So that was quite an intense program. I think within that program as well, you also had like gym fitted into there. So the lads had time in the gym. You had strength and conditioning sessions, pitch-based strength and conditioning sessions. You had the football sessions. So it was a real like multidisciplinary approach to to the practice. It wasn't just a case of you went in, you played football. There was like a really like kind of holistic approach to everything you did with those age players, because 13 and 14-year-olds, they're going through a major change at times in their body in terms of puberty, growth. We were very fortunate. We had like specialists who could see when these players were going to go through peak height velocity, when they're going to grow at the quickest. So again, you constantly have to manage the players through, the transition in the body, because as you'll know, if you do too much with someone who's grown fast, there's a high probability of getting an injury. So as a coach, you have to become really skillful at understanding the body, but also the child's brain. And then you had to make sure that every time you did a session, it wasn't just about the team. You had to make sure you had a real focus on individuals within the session to make sure you're meeting their needs.
How do you do that?
It's constantly liaising with the different team members within your MDT. So what we should have is like a weekly MDT with all the staff around the table.
An MDT, what is that?
So sorry, that's like a multidisciplinary team. So we'd have within there, you'd have like the coaching staff, you'd have strength and conditioning staff, you'd have the physio, you'd have the psychologist, you'd have the nutritionist. And then what would happen, we'd always collate data on each player. So you'd bring up the player in question and you discuss, where they're at in terms of growth and maturation. Have they got any kind of niggling injuries? And just basically looking at their condition and seeing how much you could do with that individual player. So every week you'd have that meeting to establish where they are at and what they can do. And then within session, we'd all be on the grass together. Sometimes the psychologist wouldn't be there, the nutritionist wouldn't be there, but there'd always be at least two coaches. You strength and conditioning, you'd have a physio pitch side. Quite often you'd have your head of coaching. So at that time when you're working, we try to get all staff working. It wasn't just a case of one coach works, everybody else watches. It was like a real like kind of co-coaching kind of attack where we all went in together. So, and if, for example, we did have a couple of players who need to be monitored, we'd specifically ask two staff members to keep a close eye on those players. So, everyone just thinks putting the sessions on was pretty easy, but you had all these different factors to consider when doing the sessions.
And what could be like the things you kept an eye on a player? Was it they would make him do a certain run or use his left foot or don't be negative or
so I think, for example, what I would say, what we'd look at, so as coaches of the session, we'd be like, we'd always be intentional in something we go after. So for example, we could be working on front foot passing, so we'd always be looking and having a real zoom in on like how the players can manipulate the ball to play with the front foot to beat the press. But within your session, you might have two players who are going through an awkward growth, who might be getting like shin splints, getting sore shins. So their run action might be slightly different. So what we do is we'd have our like S&C like monitoring those two players who are like moving a little bit awkward. Because when you go through a growth, you do move awkward. However, when it becomes awkward and sore, it's important that you then pull them out the session. So I think we're just really intentional around like, what is it we're looking for? As staff, as coaches, what are we going after? So we're going to go after some real front foot receiving, playing the ball through the lines to progress the play quick. And also within a session, what we try to do was we'd always target like one or two players. So for example, every player in an academy has like what we call an ILP. So an individual learning plan. So certain players are trying to build super strength. So something they're really good at, they want to get brilliant at. And they've also got areas of the game which they need to get better at. So like in life, if you chase one rabbit, you'll catch it. If you try and chase 13, you'll catch none. So we are really, really intentional about like developing individual players within a session. So quite often, one player I used to like look for, there was had a real skillful player, but he was really small within the group. And sometimes he found it really difficult, but it was really important for us as staff because when he got older, his X factor was going to be his skill. So we had to ensure he kept doing his skills within the session when it was tough. So again, the big thing was praising the intention over the outcome. So quite often when he was trying his skills, it wasn't always coming off. But being intentional and seeing it, it was important that when it didn't come off, I recognized it and I celebrated it. I love that. Keep going. That's brilliant. Keep trying that skill. Excellent. So although he's failed, he's thinking, oh, my coach is liking that. That's what I've got to keep going, because we know it's really important for his journey that he keeps doing those skills, because that's what's going to attract him to teams when he's older, if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And when you say skills, what is that? Is it like dribbling or?
Dribbling. So, for example, I just think when I watch football now, like what gets you off your seat when you watch a game of football? It's players that run with the ball. And I just think like we've gone through a period where a lot of people now play with a heavy structure and it's like pass, and we're trying to break teams down like tactical warfare. This player I'm talking about here was an unbelievable dribbler and he had loads of different like Maradona spins, you know, step overs. So it was really important for us as a collective, as an academy to try and get this player to become really skillful through what was a difficult time in terms of his growth was slower than other people's, but he still had strengths which other players didn't have. So by skills, yeah, Maradona spin, it could be a step over, it could be an outside drag, it could be an L wide, it could be any type of skill to beat his opponent.
It's quite interesting there that you work on like getting them to get one world-class feature or what do you call it, instead of like you focus more on that than on bringing up their weaknesses.
Yeah, for me personally, from my experience of coaching, I think when I first started coaching, if somebody had a weakness, I was obsessed in getting the weakness better. But I do think what I've learned over time is when I've come in contact with players at a young age and I see them when they're older at under 18, 19, the weaknesses are still the weaknesses, but the strengths are the super strength. The strengths is what attracts you to a player. So, you know, a Newcastle United player, John Joe Shelby, for example, every time I watched John Joe Shelby at the stadium, he could hit a ball. His switch of play was phenomenal. His ball striking, his passing was like, and every time he played a great pass, the crowd were like, whoa, but he wasn't great at defending. And when he was like not great at defending, it wasn't a huge deal. It was to the management, but to the fans, it wasn't. Everybody loved John Joe Shelby because his passing range was phenomenal. So I was saying now, when I get a player who's got a super strength, how do you make that unbelievable so it just stands out? And with his deficiencies or his weaknesses, keep chipping away at it. Don't neglect it, but chip away, get it better all the time, but never ever neglect your biggest strength because that is what's going to get you a career in the game from experience.
Great coaching tips. At that age, because I myself coach under 12s, it will be, so I'm quite interested in that. You play 7v7 at that age in England?
Under 8.
Under 8, but then you play 9 versus 9 in under 12?
Yeah. Under 9v9 is under 12, yeah.
Yeah. But when you have this academy in Newcastle or in Middlesbrough, I guess you have selected the best players in the area there, right?
Yeah.
How many are there in the...
In the academy, we'll have like 100 plus in the academy. So we have what we call a pre-academy, which is U7 and U8. And then you become an official academy player at U9. And you're classed as an academy player up to U21. I think, going back to what we spoke about earlier and what you mentioned was, I think it's a really young age to get kids into the academy. That's my personal opinion. I think the ideal age would be from U12 up. Because I do think it's really important these players have time with their friends. And I do think when you go into the academy environment, your class is a strong player with like potential. But I do think for some players who go in there with potential, it's difficult because all of a sudden they go from being really strong at grassroots to all of a sudden becoming just okay. And I think sometimes you have to keep being the best player and you need to have success because it builds confidence. And I think it helps you like express and explore. I think sometimes by going in an environment which you find yourself doing okay, I think you can lose confidence and lose yourself. So I think I've seen some kids come into academies and really struggle when just more mentally around, oh, what's happening here? I'm used to taking 5 players on, scoring goals, and all of a sudden I'm really struggling. So I do think we do recruit really young, and that is what the system looks like. But for me personally, I think anything from U12 up would be ideal.
If you had a group of 100 13-year-olds, how many of them would you would go on to be professionals?
Yeah, so I mean, in our academy groups, for example, we probably carry teams from like, I'd say our under 9s, we've approximately got just say 16 under 9s, and then we have about the same at under 10. Under 11, we have 16 to 18, and that's the type of numbers we have. I think it's a great point what you mentioned. I mean, the recruitment fascinates me because somebody's going to a game and they're using their eyes and they see a player play well and they invite them in. And, you know, it's hard to see potential because until people go through that change in the body and have the growth and develop power, you know, it's really difficult. But what I would say is I've worked in the academy system for a lot of years now, and Lewis Miley, who's currently at Newcastle, and he's absolutely thriving. When he was under 9, he was like exceptional. He was just, and sometimes the academy needs the boys, but the boys need the academy, but the academy needed Lewis, because when you see a player, sometimes it's hard to describe. You can just feel it and you can just see it. And he was a player where from a young age you thought this kid could be exceptional, and he's gone on. He's doing fantastic now for his local team. But again, I just think when you're recruiting a player at a young age, it is always a risk, because I think there's so many. It's never linear, is it? It's always, it's up and down. I think it's a real difficult and it's a hard skill to really identify who is actually going to become that professional.
Yeah, it is. Now you're coaching under 18 in Middlesbrough. What do you look for? What kind of qualities do you look for in a player? If you were to,
it's a great question as well. I think at under 18, I think what you have to appreciate in every player is everybody's different and everybody has a different quality. I think if you go into coach and you think, I want this type of player, it's always difficult, because every player, what I've found, has got a different quality. And I think it's really important whenever you're working with under 18, you remember there's still a child, and there's expectation that you're under 18, you're full-time, you're trying to be a footballer. There's always that person behind the player. And I think you've always got to have a real consideration for that person, because all we see is when they're at work, we see them, they put the training kit on and we see them as footballers. But as you can imagine, there's a lot of stuff going on away from the club, and you've always got to have that connection with a player. And I think what I love about a young footballer under 18 is I love coachability. I love working with players who are coachable, players who want to learn, who actively listen, ask questions, want to get better. So I think that type of player, from my experiences, they're the ones who really go for. I've coached many players who've had a high skill level. I'd say category A in skill, but in mindset they've been category C. And every single one of them, which I've worked with, have failed because the mindset is not about getting better. They've never had a growth mindset. They don't want to ask the questions and have the honest feedback. So players who are really proactive in asking questions, reflecting on the performance, exhausting all the resource in Middlesbrough or any academy they're at, they're the players who I really like working with.
Interesting. Can you, as a coach with a psychologist and stuff, can you get people to get the growth mindset? Or is it or like an 18-year-old, can think you're stuck with the brain you have and it's hard to, I don't know.
It is difficult. And we always talk about this is, I think what we always promise, we have got a psychologist at the club and he's constantly working with all the players. But I do think as coaches, we are the best psychologists. I really believe that. I think because we have that connection, that contact with them every single day. And I think like every top coach out there, it's not just about what they do on the football pitch. You have to build that connection. You've got to find out about their life. You've got to understand them. They have to understand you. And I think the more time you spend with them, the more personal conversations you have with them, I do think you can develop like the resilience. I think you can develop that growth mindset. And I do think it's like the language you use with these players is really important. For example, if you're coaching a player and if you were to say, that's not good enough, don't do that again. You always have to be really careful with your language because they'll remember what you tell and say to them. They won't necessarily remember the area size, what colour bib they had on, what colour codes you put out. They will remember those profound moments of when you say something which could be really hurtful against something where you can really make them believe they can achieve and do something. So I'd say to any coach, be really, really aware of the language that you use to help develop the growth mindset in a player.
So what should you say instead of... Don't do
that again. For example, if someone plays a bad pass, or what did you see? What would you do next time? Do you want another go? Let's have another go. And then when they get it right, brilliant. What did you do there? What was different? That was really good. Let's do it again. How many can we get now? Okay, we'll do 10 balls now. How many can we get out of 10? And then, then you develop from that. So I just think get excited when they have success. Don't stand there. Don't be empty. Just make sure every time your player does something good, you have to celebrate. You've got to make them believe. We ultimately, as coaches, we're salesmen. We're selling something, and we have to celebrate every moment with them. And people say you shouldn't get too excited. Why not? My thing is why not? Because if once you get excited, they get excited, and then you get the high five, and then you walk off, and everybody's happy. And if they leave the football pitch happy, there's a good chance the next day they want to come on that football pitch faster than you. The minute they leave the football pitch and they're feeling sad and glum and disappointed, you're going to have to drag them out a bit, drag them out the changing room, back on the training pitch. So, yeah, celebrate every good moment with them.
Is there a difference between an under 14 and under 18?
I think your principles quite often are the same. I mean, how much changes in terms of the practices? I think it's very, very similar. If I'm honest with you, I still do stuff that I did with the foundation phase players with the under 18s because the fundamentals and the best players never get bored of doing the basics. And I do think with any practice that you put on, you can tweak in different ways depending on what you want out the session. So quite often, what I find is I've probably got 12 key sessions which I know the players love and I know the work. And quite often I always ask myself, what do the players need and how am I going to help them? And then I've got certain practices which I know historically work really well and I can tweak them to what I know I want to get out of the session. So I just think you've got to have a real kind of, I think whenever you're putting your diet sessions together, you've got historic sessions which you know really work well, and then you've got the ones where you want to explore and try out. I think it's really important to have both, because if you always do the same sessions, you become boring, and you need to be able to explore and try new things to help the players. So it's recognizing when to use which one. And I think for me, I'm much better at that now. Because again, I think it's really important that we're developing players and making players better, but at the same time, we have to develop ourselves. So it's really important that you put yourself out of the comfort zone, and you've got to have a mindset. If we're telling the players to have a growth mindset, we've got to have the same mindset ourselves. So you have to put yourself in a situation where you're going to try something, knowing it can fail. That's absolutely fine. It's no problem because, lads, didn't work. Don't worry about it. Keep the ball up. I'm going to set something else up, and you move on. But I definitely think a lot of the stuff you do at 14s, you'll be doing at 18s as well.
So can you tell us about a typical practice of yours?
Typical practice.
What do you do? How do you warm up?
So basically when the boys, they always do prep every morning at 10 o'clock. So by prep, they'll go with the S&C coach and they'll do some basic stretches, some movements, and they'll work with the S&C coach for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes...
S&C coach areas for that's some kind of physical...
So strength and conditioning coach.
Strength and conditioning, yeah.
Sorry, I keep saying...
No worries.
The strength and conditioning coach. So they'll work with Robbie for 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes, they'll come across with the coaches. And we'll always do like an invasion or an activation session. And I think this bit's really important because if you start a session with a passing drill, for example, I do think if the passing drill starts slow, you'd be chasing the players all the way through the session. As if you start with an invasion practice where the players are pressing, the tackling, the breaking into each other's zones, I think it just raises like the arousal, like lifts, the competition elements there. So you're starting the session where you want it to finish. It's competitive, it's quick, it's happening. So we'll always do one type of possession invasion practice. So that could be like a 5v2. It could be like a 6v3, anything where there's pressure and they've got to move the ball. We'll then...
How long do you do that?
So if we're going to do that, we do 4 blocks of 2 minutes, approximately. And then we'll quite often go into, well, if I was going to do just say a Monday session, that's what we do on a Monday. We then most likely go into... I've got a great session for that one as well. For the activation session, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, great. People can download it on our Substack here. Yeah.
From the activation session, it depends. We'll certainly just go in a functional practice. So by a functional practice, that means we'll put the players in positions and we'll go through some, like, within a functional practice, they're great to hit the players' individual learning plans. So going back to what we discussed before, players need to work on the super strengths and also the deficiencies. So by going to a functional practice, we can manipulate positions and scenarios where they're going to develop the strengths, but also the weaknesses. So a functional practice could be the players work the ball across the back four, playing to the number 9. And then when the ball's at the number 9, you have a back 4 against the front 5. So you have the overload. How do you find the spare man to get into the space behind? And what I try and do with my functional practices is use multi-ball. So don't just use one ball. So when that first ball goes dead, you feed a second ball in, and then you feed a third ball in. And that way...
There's only one ball in play at a time.
One at a time, yeah. But as soon as that ball goes out of play, you get the next ball in.
Yeah. And the team here there's an opposition in the...
Yeah.
One team is trying to reach the 9 or whatever. And
want to reach a 9. So the defending unit, for example, we'd have like 2 goals just in front of the halfway line. So if the defensive unit win the ball back, they can score on a mini goal. Because it's really important that if you're working with defenders in a session, it's not just about the attack. It's important that if they do win the ball, you can use like 2 mini goals and say that's your number 11 and that's your 7. So they have got in their head, I want to win this ball back because I want to score a goal. Because if they're just constantly defending, they switch off and they lose motivation. As if you give them something to be motivated about, they can then look to play that pass up. We then would go in, we like playing progressive, like so.
And I'm just interested in the time period here. You do
sorry.
this.
So again, we work in blocks. So depending on what day of the week it is, we'll always liaise with the strength and conditioning and ask his professional advice. So if we're doing a functional practice, there's a good chance we'll do 4 blocks of 3 minutes or 4 blocks of 4 minutes. And between every block, we'll try and do our coach interventions. If we see something live, we'll stop it, stand still, and then we'll go through some coaching points. Because I think that's deep learning. You're learning in the moment, which is really important. But if it's going and we're seeing some good pictures, what we'll do is when we have the 4 minutes and we blow the whistle, I'll work with one team and the other coach will work with the other team. And we'll just feed some stuff in, just punchy, not too long, then get them back in playing against each other. So your interventions are coming in the breaks. And then we do a possession as well, because whenever you do a possession, what we always have to consider is what's our formation on a weekend. It's no good doing a possession for the sake of doing a possession. We're trying to be really intentional. So, for example, if we play a 4-2-3-1, we'll set up a possession in shape. So we're setting ourselves up ready. Even though it's early in the week, we're planting the seed ready for the following weekend's game. So we'll always try and do some form of possession where we're playing through. So we're progressing the play, because that fits in with our syllabus as well. So if we're doing progressive passing, that's purposeful possession. So we'll always try and do a possession activity where you have a spare man. And again, in terms of time on that, we'll do blocks again. So there's a good chance we'll work on a possession, depending on the area size. If we're going on a large area day, we'd go for longer periods. But if it's on a Monday, it'll be shorter periods. So again, we'd probably work for 4 blocks of 2 minutes on that possession.
And when you say possession, that's like a drill when there are no goals, you're supposed to keep the ball in the team.
Yeah.
But you said you played that with a formation.
Yeah.
Don't you need a direction if you have a formation? No?
Yeah. So we'll always, it'll be a directional possession. So I should say directional possession. So, we'll have target plays either side. So you have to work the ball up and then work the ball back. So, and again, even when you're doing a possession without any goals, I think it's important that you establish like your shape and your structure within that. Because, for example, if you do a possession, everyone's just flying all over. There is a place for that at times, but I think it's really important that if you set your plays up in shape, I think then that's game realistic. So although you're not haven't got the usual dimensions of a football pitch, you've still got your option. If you're a centre back, you've still got your right back, you've got your number 6, you've got your centre back, you've got your number 9. And I think it's just that it just gets them in the habit of the awareness of scanning. So they're seeing realistic pictures on a smaller scale. We like to do a lot of attack v defences as well. Possession, you might call them phaser plays. So attack v defence. So again, on half a pitch, I think we have it's a really good way of developing a style of play when you do a attack v defence in shape. Again, there's certain principles that we try and get into the players at Middlesbrough. So, for example, when we've got the ball, can the wide players be really wide and create space for the 10s? So when you're doing your attack v defence, I think there's some great opportunities to then stop the practice and give some real kind of detail around, okay, when the ball's here, right, what you see and what do you need is right, what do you need, right, so the 10's got to roll in, so can you roll in the 10 and what does that mean for the fullback? That means the fullback's got a 1v1. So again, I think it's a really, really good practice for any coach when you want to kind of give some real specific detail for your in-possession players, even for your out-of-possession players. So for example, if I'm working in possession, the coach I work with, Rob, he'll work on out-of-possession. So it's like tactical warfare between myself and him. Before the session we've planned it, we'll know what we're going to go after. But again, we tend to do a lot of attack v defence, like phaser plays, and we'll always finish with a game. We'll always finish with a game because I think it's really important at the end of a session, for all the work and all the detail and all the support you give the players, I think it's important to have play within the session, because without play, I think that's critical.
And do you play 11v11 then?
we'd love to play 11v11 more, but due to numbers, we quite often find ourselves playing 7v7, 8v8, 9v9. And the lads love 9v9, 18-yard box to 18-yard box, 2 keepers. They'll love that practice. It's one of the favourites, which is nice.
Yeah. At what age do you think it's time to concentrate on one position?
I think you need to start establishing yourself in a position at U14. I think it's really important to explore when you're young. I think, especially in the foundation phase, I think everybody should play every position. Like my littlest one, Sam, he goes in goal like every 5th week, which I love. Some parents don't like it. Some parents just want a permanent goalkeeper. But I do think as well, going through the foundation phase, you know, for example, if I'm a right-footed player and then you get better on my left foot, especially in the foundation phase, you know, put the player on the left-hand side of the pitch and set them targets and individual challenges. Even at under 18s now, when we coach, I set my players individual challenges. So in the session, for example, going back to skill, I've got a really good attacking number 10 and I challenge them every session, not every session, but the majority of the sessions, when you receive the ball, you have to beat the press with a skill. So by that, I mean, when the nearest player comes towards him, he's got to progress past him somewhere with the ball. And there's certain times where the players are getting at him and I'm saying to him, I'm not telling the group, I'm just saying to him, don't worry about it. I know what you're doing. We know what we're doing. Keep doing it. Because even in the foundation phase, I think you should be saying to the kids, it's you v the world. You should be developing dribblers in the foundation phase. You know, who's the king of the duel? Who is the best in the duel? Who wants to be the king tonight? Who's going to win every tackle? Who's going to keep beating the defender 1v1? I want to see kings tonight. And I think even at under 18 level, I'm still setting individual challenges to players because it's really important that they know, 1, I care, 2, I'm watching, but 3, they're getting better at what they're brilliant at. So, yeah, I think one position, I'd say establish yourself at under 14.
Are you grouping players by level? Because we on the grassroots team here in Sweden, I don't even know if there's debate anymore, but there's different ways of seeing it. Or if you're an inclusive team that almost all are, it can feel a bit strange to have, the ones that are the best. They train. Yeah. If you have a group of 30 kids, you have the best 10. They do their session, the mid-10s, and the weakest one in one group. Yeah. Is that a discussion in England?
Yeah, I think we constantly analyse in the academy around, for example, if someone's thriving under 18, they might go in the under 21s. If someone's thriving in 21s, they might go with the first team. If we have players who are really thriving under 16s, they'll come in the 18s. So I do think levels is really important, but I do think we have to be really careful categorising players. Like, so he is the strongest player or she is the strongest player. I do think if you do have levels, it's got to be flexible. I think they should be able to move up. They should be able to move down. Or instead of saying moved up and down, you could say moved across. Because I do think, for example, there will be occasions where a boy or girl's absolutely thriving and they get moved into the strongest group. But then they might go through a real difficult time and they might need to come down a group. So I think it's really important if you do create levels, I think it's important at the beginning of the process you explain that you can move across. And if you get moved across, it's not a punishment. Everything we do is to help you develop your potential. And the timing's really important about when you do move up or move down or move across. So, and I always say, never let anybody touch the bar. You've always got to make that challenge point really high. Because if they never touch the bar, they're always striving for more. The minute it becomes too easy, that's when they stop and become demotivated.
I'm thinking about the physical thing there. Do you work anything with biobanding?
We have explored biobanding within the academy, and it's something which some academies do constantly. They have like biobanding age groups, and we've been to a few events through the Premier League where they've set up a biobanding for different teams to come together and trial it. And I do think it's really important that we take this into consideration. Tottenham Hotspur, for example, Harry Winks used to play for Tottenham, and throughout his whole journey at the academy at Tottenham, Harry Winks played down an age group because he was always physically smaller. So now any player at Tottenham who plays down an age group, they call it the Harry Winks program, which is really successful because Harry Winks went on to have a fantastic career, played for the first team, did great. So I do think biobanding, there's real benefits to it. I'm not going to contradict myself here, but I also think players have to find a way. So I don't think it's a bad thing when like smaller players play with big players. Because I do think that the problem solve and they become really good like at finding solutions to problems. As sometimes by putting in biobanding, they might not, find the same solutions. I think it's good to have that challenge point where they become, smart and become a bit quick, and they work things out, and all of a sudden they become crafty and they find good solutions to problems.
Do you have any coaching role models?
I was very fortunate when I first started coaching. I started grassroots and I went into Sunderland Academy. And at the time, there's a guy there called Wayne Walls. And Wayne was like someone who's basically mentored me into coaching. And I always found Wayne was just like, he could predict the future when it come to coaching. The stuff he was doing like 20 years ago, it started becoming more fashionable now. And I just loved his patience and his manner with the players. And he really enforced into us when I was younger, when I first started coaching, because I look at what I was like then to what I am now. I'm completely different. And I'm actually a bit embarrassed when I look back at how I used to be when I first started coaching. And I look at Wayne and the messages that he gave us and the way he's seen coaching. Like, he was just inspirational, and he was a coach who I always wanted to be like. As I got older, I always look back now, I think I would love to be like Wayne. He always used to say about me, but it's about the intention, not the outcome. Make sure you praise intention. And when I was young, coach, I was thinking, yeah, but he's giving the ball away. Like, that's that. But he's no. If the intention's right, you have to praise the intention. And he always spoke about connection with players as well. How can you develop that connection really early with a player? And yeah, he was a real role model for me when I first started coaching. And even now, I speak to him now, and he is a phenomenal coach.
How do you do to get that connection with the player?
I just think it's really important that you find time to have with your players. And I think, just little questions, like, how's home? How's the family? Did you do much last night? Like, it could be anything, just daft things, like, you might see someone's got a new haircut, like, whoa, where do you get that done? That's a bit sharp. What were you thinking? And then you just little things, and then also it's like, what we do, we record every session at Middlesbrough. We have like a drone and we have a camera. And then it's just recognizing like moments of, if you spot something, just record it down, clip it, and then you just call the player in. So you'll just say, for example, Mac, have you got 2 minutes? I've called something on camera for you. And then you'll show them something on the camera. Say, I love that today. That's absolutely class. What were you thinking there in that moment? I'm not. Hey, let's get after that next week. Okay, you come to me with a couple of ideas. And you're just developing this relationship, and you take them on a journey. And I think you've got to go on a journey with them. And you got to appreciate when you coach, it's not always nice, and there is difficult conversations. But I think when you have them difficult conversations, when they know it comes from a place of care, and you've given them like all your time, and you've like had them personal conversations, I think honesty becomes like a non-negotiable. I think like they understand that it comes from a good place. And I think don't underestimate just, speaking to the person behind the player. That's really important.
When do you feel bitter or frustrated as a coach?
I feel a bit bitter and frustrated when my players lose confidence. So I don't know. Yeah, so I made a note on this one. So I've got here, like, when the effort or attitude drops, that hurts us as a coach. Also, for example, when players become afraid to make mistakes through external pressures. By external pressures, I mean parents. That really frustrates us because, as coaches, we're constantly trying to help these players become better, and we want to make them love it and enjoy it and make it fun and cool. And, you're doing everything you can for them to just be expressive and explore and make mistakes. And it really, really gets to us when a parent on the side is giving the child, grief or criticism or getting at them for making a mistake. That is what I find really challenging, because sometimes as a parent, we've all got it. Like, it comes from a place of care, but sometimes we don't articulate it in the best possible way in the moment because we get emotional. It's nature of the beast. I get it. But parents sometimes just have to take a step back and like see what the player's trying. And that parent doesn't know what we've said to the player. So going back to what I was talking about before, when I'm giving these players individual challenges, I'm expecting them to fail. And I'm absolutely all right with that. I make sure the player knows I'm all right with that. But then if they've got a parent telling them something different, and all of a sudden they then try and plan to please the parent, that's not going to develop the potential. So that's something which I really struggle with.
When have you been at your worst as a coach? Came home and thought, Stephen, this wasn't good. Today I failed.
I've there's been a few times. I think as a coach, I'll go back to what I spoke about earlier, is it's really important that we're developing players, but you have to develop yourself and you have to put yourself out of your comfort zone. And there's been a few occasions where I've tried something and it was a disaster. But in them moments, you've just got to put your hands and say, lads, I'm really sorry. That's on me. It didn't work. Let's move on. But it still hurts because it is a little bit embarrassing at the time. And you go in, you reflect, because I think we all do, all coaches at work are desperate to help and support and get better. You reflect and, you think, whoa, what was I doing? Like, that was terrible. But you overcome it and then you learn from it, don't you? So, but there's another occasion where I had to release a player at Newcastle. And we played away at Bradford City, and it was under 14s, and I'd worked with this player since he was 7. So I had a relationship since he was 7. So I basically got a Newcastle United shirt. I got all the team to sign it, and the plan was to present this shirt to this player at the end of the game. So it was his last game for the club. So when all the lads were there, I've got up and I've went to do a presentation and like basically say all these lovely things about this player because he was a really, really good kid. And I broke down in tears. I just couldn't get my words out. I'm in floods of tears. So the player who we released as a club is over and he's cuddling me, telling me it's going to be okay. And I'm thinking, this should be the other way around. So again, that was another moment where I went home a little bit embarrassed about obviously like not being able to hold it together. But at the same time, that just come from a good place as well.
From a good place. What is your proudest moment as a coach?
There's a couple of moments, really. I think I get massive pleasure from players who don't think they can achieve. And then from working with them, seeing them with confidence and like having a mindset where they believe they can achieve. I get huge satisfaction from that. I think another really good moment was once when I was at Sunderland and there was a young player there and he got released from the football club. And he sent me and another coach an individual letter each, just thanking us for being brilliant coaches. And I thought, we've released a player, but yet he still took the time to send us a letter saying thank you. And I thought, that's why I'm in it. I'm not in it for money. I'm in it there just because I want to give back, because that for me is like, that's gold dust. And that stayed with us for a long time now. Knowing that even though he's had a horrendous experience, he still took time to write a letter saying thank you.
How do you develop yourself as a coach? You're talking about getting out of your comfort zone, but where do you find your inspiration and new knowledge?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate that at Middlesbrough, like we have a budget so you can do like CPD, so you can constantly, develop yourself.
CPD is another, what's that?
Continuous professional development. So, continuous development. And I went on a course called ECAS, which was Elite Coaches Association. And it was a 2-year diploma through the Premier League. And that was an amazing course where it looked at yourself and who you are and why you do what you do. I did that. That was a 2-year course, which was brilliant. So I'm constantly looking at different like courses which I can attend. I do a lot of observations. So for example, we've been blessed with some brilliant coaches. We had a guy called Aaron Danks who went off to Bayern Munich with Vincent Kompany. Like Michael Carrick was an excellent coach. The new manager at Middlesbrough now. He is like, I haven't seen loads, but from what I've seen, he is absolutely top class. So again, I'm always constantly observing and watching others, stealing as much as you can, because the best coaches steal. You've got to make no secret. Whenever you see something you like it, write it down, keep it and use it. I think a massive bit of learning for me is like the constant reflection. I think you're only as good as your reflections. So whenever you do a session, constantly reflect about what did you like about it, what could be even better. And there's no better way of doing that than asking the players. Constantly ask your players. I think we might avoid that conversation, but for me, at the end of a session, I think body language gives it away at times. Yourself, when your boys or girls leave the session and the noise levels are high, it feels amazing. And there's times where they go off a little bit quiet. So sometimes it's the best, like, what do you think of the session? What would you have done different? What was your favourite part? What didn't you like? And those kind of questions will only help you become better at coaching. So that's a good way I do it as well.
Great. The last question used to be, if you have, I don't know how I should interpret this to English, but like a Mr. Know-it-all tip for other coaches. The one thing you should like tell, like an advice to other coaches that think about this.
Yeah, the first thing I'd say is keep learning. We're always learning. Football's forever changing. You know, it's never the same. So I think keep learning. I've also put down create an environment where mistakes are normal. Mistakes are normal. Mistakes are going to happen. The best way to learn is by making mistakes. And I think if you go in with that mindset, you know, you're comfortable with mistakes. If you want your sessions to look neat and perfect, the players will not learn. It should be chaos. They should be making mistakes. And the other thing I think, which is absolutely massive, is put players before results. Put players before results and put the person before the player. I think that's really, really important. If we're talking about connection and coaching, and I think to get that connection, you've got to have a relationship with the person. That's what I would say.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephen Harrison, for being on Föräldrartränarpodden. All the best to you and good luck in the future. I hope I see maybe you or your players in the Premier League here. Maybe next year, if Kim does his job well there, managing.
Yeah, I think we're looking good. I think there's every chance. I think the football we play now is brilliant. I don't know if you've seen much of Middlesbrough, but they're definitely worth watching.
Haven't seen them since Ravanelli and Juninho's days there in the late 90s.
Yeah, some big names then, wasn't there?
I heard about the hell ball, is it called, isn't it?
Yeah, the hell ball, that's what they call it, yeah.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for being on this show. Goodbye.
Goodbye, thank you.
Är det så att du har tankar kring detta, kommentarer, tips på nya gäster, ta kontakt med mig på fredrik.bankler@gmail.com. Vill gärna ha in mer kvinnor framför mikrofonen här. Det är ju nästan bara karar som är med. Och jag vill även ha tips på, är det någon som har lyckats med detta och få till oorganiserad träning, spontanfotboll? Hur har ni gjort då? Hur kan vi få ut ungarna att spela utan att det måste komma ut en ledare med bollsäck och koner och säga till dem att spela? Hur får vi upp det här spelandet på fritiden? Vet du någon som har lyckats med detta någonstans? Tipsa mig gärna, till exempel om det eller om andra saker du tycker är intressant och jag kan vara nyfiken på att vilja veta mer om. Tills nästa gång, ha det bra!